While that's coming up, I am Cathy Jordan. I am the Consulting Director of Research for the Children in Nature Network. I'm also a, excuse me, a professor of pediatrics at the University of Minnesota. Started my career as a pediatric neuropsychologist. And I'm also the Associate Director for Leadership and Education at the Institute on the Environment at the University of Minnesota. So I, from sort of a research lens, I've been asked to kind of tell you what do we know about this topic, about how nature influences kids' academic function, and, excuse me, what are the factors that could explain that, and how does COVID perhaps fit into all of this? And I'm not going to do that by giving you a bunch of different specific studies findings, although I'm happy to support that with research articles if you're interested. But I want to tell you about a model that I created that is a research-based model. I created this with a collaborator, Ming Kuo from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and a graduate student here, Michael Barnes at University of Minnesota. And this basically demonstrates that there is research that demonstrates that these various forms of nature exposure in the green column, which are play-based and learning-based, both informal and formal sorts of learning. There's research that connects those to things in the purple, the learning outcomes. There's also research that demonstrates a connection between the things in the green and these boxes in the blue, and I'm going to specifically talk about the top one. So nature helps kids concentrate. It improves and enhances attention function. It relieves stress. It helps kids regulate their behavior. It engages kids in learning, and it enhances physical activity. We then looked at the research in those areas and their connection to academic outcomes, and were able to demonstrate that, you know, attention and stress and engagement and self-regulation and physical activity are all connected to academic outcomes. And without, you know, going through statistics to demonstrate a path model, which was, you know, not what we intended to do in this integrative lit review, we were basically positing that nature can benefit kids' academic outcomes through these mediating factors of attention, stress, engagement, physical activity, etc. What's really important about this is that these are the same areas that, at least in part, are things that we suspect are affected by COVID. These children who've been out of school are less engaged, if not disengaged, from their academic studies. They could be having significant or mild stress in their lives as a result of COVID, everything from just being bored and a little antsy to a member of their family dying, or suffering some significant mental health issues in the family, or domestic violence, child abuse, etc. They've probably also potentially been trapped inside more, less physical activity, etc. And so if we could engineer school in the fall to be outdoors and take advantage of best practices in nature-based learning, we would be creating a win-win situation where we're doing school in a way that is advisable from a public health standpoint in terms of being outdoors, being more distanced from each other, etc., and doing school in a way that is going to address the social, emotional, mental health, and physical health needs of the child in a way that does not essentially do that at the expense of the academics, but could actually enhance the academic outcomes as well. I also want to point out a really important finding in the literature that the wonky name for it is the echogenic effect, which basically just means that nature's impact on kids' outcomes is relatively stronger for those who are most advantaged or most at risk. And if you think about the possibility that COVID has placed some kids at more risk, either just because of their family situation or because they are from lower socioeconomic status backgrounds and they've been hit harder by COVID, those children are most likely to be those experiencing disruptions to their attention and stress regulation, emotional behavior regulation, disengagement from school, etc. So if we could utilize best practices in nature-based education, we would be improving everything for everyone, but potentially we could be doing something particularly effective for those who are most at risk for COVID-related stressors and most at risk for academic achievement issues, and potentially help those kids who are probably the ones most likely to fall behind during this time to narrow that gap a little bit. So I'm going to stop there.